Boo! Did I scare you? No, probably not. Well, you know what? That might have scared the 10 characters that are going to appear on today's list. Of course, as voted on by fans and in celebration of Halloween, that time where the barrier, I guess you could say, between the living world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. Yes, this is going to be a creepy one, as voted on by fans when we look at the top 10 most cowardly Transformers. This time around, in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe. And while you are at it, light 'em up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that, man, in the description down below. Also in the description down below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through spring. Or, of course, hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. Happy Halloween. I guess it's, as of right now, this is the day before Halloween, depending on when you're watching it. But of course it's Monday, it's countdown day, it is October the 30th of 2023. And I thought that I wanted to try and do something that was somewhat connected to this like most scariest time of the year. And I said, you know what haven't we done? Because we've done some over the last few years. I was like, what's a topic that could fit here? And then I thought about being scared and being afraid and getting afraid. And I said, you know what? I wonder who the top 10 most cowardly Transformers are. And so I put that question out to the masses. We, of course, got the results here. I'm going to go through them. Some very interesting votes and some that I think might be a little questionable if it's like something other than cowardice, or maybe some present themselves in such a way because of their cowardice. You'll see what I mean as we go through. We have 2 honorable mentions, one of them, of course, being, and I love this, I thought this guy was actually going to make the list, but he didn't, being Hellbat from the Lyle Kaiser Combiner. And I get it because Hellbat was so fearful of losing his position as part of that team that when Death Cobra came, I think at the request of Leozak, to kind of like bolster the team, Hellbat was so fearful of losing his spot that he actually ended up extinguishing the spark of Death Cobra. I think by accident, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, but he did. He took him out, all because he was afraid. That's how afraid he was. He took out another Decepticon. A skilled Decepticon, by the way. The other most cowardly Transformer, honorable mention, this is a very interesting one that I needed some explanation for, is Unicron. Yes, big old planet-sized coward. Why? Because he lives in such intense fear of just a little piece of Primus, just the Matrix, just a small little smidge of Primus that he has to go so far as to basically revamp, reformat, revive Megatron and a number of other destroyed Decepticons that were on their way out, and even give him a new ship. But has a little bit of fear when Galvatron gets the Matrix, figuring he can control Unicron now. I mean, it's like one of the voters said, Unicron's this huge planet devourer who's terrified of a little trinket. I get it. Neither of them made the list. Both of them honorable mentions. Again, Hellbat and Unicron honorable mentions. They did not make the list. So what are we going to do? You know what we're going to do. We're going to do as we always do and kick things off with number 10 first. Blah, blah. That's me doing a vampire. It's not very good. I'm not good at impressions. Now, number 10 may seem strange at first. It did to me until I heard the reasoning why, because number 10 is First Aid. Now, First Aid appeared on a different list that we did about pacifists some time ago, and he is a pacifist. He's a doctor. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to injure. I'm a doctor. I heal. I repair. I fix. I get it. However, those that voted for him said, you know what? Maybe the whole reason he's a pacifist is because at his core, in his spark, he's terrified of going into the fight, of going into the heat of battle. He's scared of what could happen to him or potentially his comrades. I get that. His pacifism Yeah, there's a big word. Motivated by his fear of fighting. Possibly. I don't know if there's any fiction. I don't know if there's any logic to back it up, but you know what? It seems like as good a motivation to be a pacifist as any. And enough fans felt that way that First Aid was able to take the number 10 slot for most cowardly Transformers. Number 9 now is a lot of things. A coward, an egotist, and an opportunist. I'm talking, of course, about Transformers Prime Knockout. Yeah, Knockout. Knockout is only going to go into battle if A, he knows he already has the upper hand and can win, or B, he realizes who the winning side is. In fact, in Predacons Rising, he actually ends up wanting to side with the Autobots. Spoiler alert. He's not someone who's going to go in guns blazing. He's not going to be the first guy on the battlefield. He's going to let everybody else do the heavy lifting, and if there's some glory to be found, maybe he'll go in and just snatch that under the cover of darkness. He also doesn't want to go into battle because he's an egotist. He doesn't want to scratch his beautiful, gorgeous paint job. Whether he's more motivated by being a coward and not wanting to get injured or hurt or worse, or because he's an egotist, they kind of go hand in hand in concert to make Transformers Prime Knockout one of the most cowardly, at least appearing Transformers in all of fiction. Enough fans feel that way that Knockout was able to take the number 9 spot. Number 8 is a very interesting character to be on this list. It's RatTrap. And I get it, because RatTrap would much rather kind of scurry around in, like, gutters and trash bins and kind of do the small jobs that, honestly, he doesn't have to interact with too many bots. He may not encounter danger that much. He's pretty close with Botanica, who is honestly pretty calm and peaceful. I don't know if it's so much that he's cowardly or that he just plain doesn't want to die, He's definitely somebody who comes across as hopeless, and I think that his self-confidence is low. After all, when he does encounter battle, he deals with it pretty well. Like, he's pretty skilled and he has a decent arsenal. It's just that he would rather avoid it because it's scary and it's dangerous. He covers his cowardice and he covers his fear, really, usually, by being rude, irreverent, and a bit of a loudmouth. However, those that know him well are able to see through that veneer to see that inside, he's really just a scared little mouse boy. Yeah, RatTrap takes the number 8 slot. I was sincerely hoping that number 7 would be on the list. In fact, I thought number 7 would be higher. Not only is number 7 one of the biggest Transformers cowards, but I would argue that number 7 is probably the second most annoying of all Transformers characters. I'm talking about Beast Wars Stampy. This is a KO of Stampy. Look, Stampy is a great scout. He's fast. He has great senses. He's able to pick up a lot of information, share a lot of information, but as soon as there's a hint, a smidge, a smell of danger, he's out of there. He knows he's a coward, and he knows that it's something that he has to struggle against. That's why he tries to focus on his strengths. As long as you can be a great information gatherer and get out of Dodge super duper fast, which he can do because of his speed, then everything will be A-OK. But when it comes to having to be the backup for the rest of his maximal team, yeah, maybe not so much. The cowardly Stampy takes the number 7 slot. Now, number 6 may come as a strange one when we go back to visit the Decepticons and Megatron. That's right, Megatron, the coward. A lot of people that voted for Megatron, they weren't clear on if he was the actual coward or if he seems cowardly because all of his underlings are cowards. After all, especially in G1, probably more than any other iteration of Megatron, but especially in G1, how often did he utter the word, the non-battle cry of the coward, retreat? Yes, whether it's because he knew he was outgunned, outnumbered, and outclassed himself, or whether it's because he realized all of his forces are useless. It's hard to tell whether he actually is a coward or appears as a coward. Any way you cut it, Megatron takes the number 6 slot. And now a hush falls over the crowd. All we hear is the wind through the trees and the creaking, cracking of branches as we reach the ever-coveted, ever-popular, ever-scary halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we go to the Decepticons. One of their biggest braggarts by way of Thrust. That's right, Thrust is going to be the guy who has no finesse, who has no stealth. He's going to come in loud. He's going to come in, I guess his null rays blasting. He's going to come in and make a stir and make a noise. He wants everyone to know he's there. So how does that seem cowardly? Well, as soon as there's just enough opposition that he feels like he may, not even for sure, that he may suffer injury or be outclassed, he's going to be the first one to fly off. So he may lead the charge, but he's also going to leave everyone else abandoned and back away when the going gets tough. That sounds pretty cowardly to me, and enough fans feel that way that Thrust was able to take the number 5 slot. Number 4 may be real adept to being a wheeler dealer, and he's a great talker, but in his heart, at his core, in his spark, he's an absolute coward. I'm talking about Swindle. Yes, Swindle's a businessman. Swindle is the guy who will give you the implements of destruction, but he doesn't really want to use them himself. He doesn't want to be the guy in the heat of battle that's doing the fighting. He wants to be the guy who's supplying both sides and playing them against each other for the most maximum profit. Scumbag? Yes. Low morals? Yes. Absolute coward who doesn't want to do any of the heavy lifting himself? Also a yes. Enough fans knew that Swindle is a great talker and a big coward that he was able to garner enough votes to solidify himself at the number 4 slot. Top three, and at number 3 is somebody who actually reminds me of another character that we saw earlier on the list. Number 3 is Huffer. And a lot like RatTrap, he's a complainer, he's a whiner, he's a loudmouth. He also suffers from not having the best kind of self-assurance, not having the best self-image, and not having the best self-confidence. It presents in a way that comes across as being a loudmouth, as being unlikable, but at the end of the day, RatTrap and Huffer are actually really skilled combatants when the going gets tough. It's just that their own hang-ups hold them back. Their own hang-ups make them fearful, and their own hang-ups turn them into a coward. It's just too bad that they didn't see just how good they really are. The loudmouth complaining Huffer, who may very well be a coward underneath when he really shouldn't be, takes the number 3 slot. Now I will apologize at number 2 because I'm actually going to be showing this. It's Skywarp, but it's actually not this Skywarp that takes number 2. It's animated Skywarp. I just don't happen to have an animated Skywarp handy. And animated Skywarp looks like animated Starscream, except he's in traditional Skywarp colors. Animated Skywarp, in case you didn't know, is one of the multiple Starscream clones. In fact, he is the clone known as the cowardly clone of Starscream. He embodies Starscream's cowardly side to its nth degree. I mean, he's the guy who comes up with every excuse in the book. He's the guy who worries about microbes getting in, like his exhaust intakes and stuff. He's the guy who sees only the hopeless side of everything. He's the guy who wants to stay in the middle or the back, or I don't want to go at all because it's scary, you know? He's the guy who will always be the pessimist, who will always look on the downside, who will always say, there's no way that we're going to win. In fact, he's always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that holds him back. He's fast, he's capable, but he's scared of literally everything, including his own shadow. Skywarp, animated Skywarp, takes the number 2 slot. And here we are at number 1. And I think we all know that number 1 was going to have a by far clear winner. However, I decided to keep number 1 a little bit interesting by kind of doing a mini ranking here of top 3. Number 1 at its core is, and I don't think this is going to come as a surprise to anyone, Starscream, the most cowardly of all Transformers indeed. However, while I lumped all of those votes together so that we wouldn't have an entire list of, well, just Starscream, we already did top 10 Starscreams, I'm going to give you guys a quick little ranking of how the votes broke down for Starscream. First, no one voted for the Armada version, which is understandable because he's more heroic than anything. And nobody voted for the Shattered Glass version, for the same reason. He's really more honorable and heroic than anything. However, those that voted for Starscream came in one of 4 general groups. First, they said any Starscream except Shattered Glass, or any Starscream except Armada. I get that. The second voted for Transformers Prime. The third voted for the live action one. And the fourth group voted for G1. I lumped them all together to give us Starscream. What order did those three come in? The G1 came in at number 3. It had the least number of votes for a cowardly Starscream, which is interesting because I think we all know that he's the archetype for cowardly Starscream. At, I guess, number 1B, if you want to call it that, we would have the live action Starscream, the Bayverse one that ended up being, taken out by a human of all things because he didn't want to fight other Transformers, and even said to Megatron at one point, cowards do survive, and they flew away. But by far number 1 that had the most votes, even of the Starscreams, was Transformers Prime Starscream. And as egotistical as he was, and as conniving and scheming and slithering as that version of Starscream is, undeniable. He's also a coward at his core, always wanting to find a workaround rather than go into battle, even though he talks bravely. Starscream, whether G1, live action, or Transformers Prime, clearly by far took the number 1 slot. And that's 10 down to 1 once again. There were some other votes as well. G1 Silverbolt, because of his fear of flying and being a plane. Apparently one of the iterations of Broadside is afraid of water, even though he turns into an aircraft carrier. Who else did we have votes for here? Dirge, who uses fear as like a weapon of his, but it can be turned back on him. Some of the Viacons, specifically one of the Viacons that got a torch in the eye. Cybertron Ransack. I thought for sure Cybertron Ransack was going to be on the list. He was not. Cybertron Thundercracker. We already said Hellbat. Hot Rod. RID Clampdown. Beast Wars 2 Starscream, who I counted separately because it's a kind of a completely different take on the character. Reflector. Most notably, one of the members of Reflector that got thrown into like a test run of the space bridge. He was terrified when Starscream picked him up and threw him in. A couple of people thought that that was just a generic Reflector, but I think it was one of the main 3 bots. It just so happens he made it through the space bridge and survived. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a generic one just using that body type, but I don't think so. Skyfire, he was more of a pacifist again, right? Wanted to be more scientist than combatant. G1 Silverbolt, I already said. Who else do we have here? Red Alert, yes. Waspinator. Maybe? Yeah, Waspinator has his cowardly streak for sure. Another pacifist that could possibly be a pacifist because he's a coward, Beachcomber. Although I feel like Beachcomber's just a, he's just a hippie. I feel like he's more that than a coward, but maybe I'm wrong. Bayverse Wheelie. Yes, absolutely. Plus he's annoying. G1 Trax, if for nothing else because he doesn't want to scratch his paint. Crasher apparently is a coward. I don't know. I don't remember Crasher being a coward. I just remember Crasher being a maniac. Maybe there's a top 10 there. Most maniacal. I don't know if we've already done that one. I'll have to look. Blue Streak had votes. Movieverse. Barricade. Cerebros, who wanted to be deactivated rather than fight. Rescue Bots Blades. I thought that was a good one. Primus, because he always hides. I think he's always asleep and couldn't care less, but you know what? Maybe he is hiding. IDW Swerve, Tantrum, Pterosaur, at least according to Dinobot. Animated Sentinel Prime had votes. IDW Fulcrum, not a character I even know. And Laserbeak. Yes, all of those and a few more had votes. What an interesting list. What an interesting round. Did your favorites appear or not? I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button. Stick around, have some fun with us here on the channel. Happy Halloween, and especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you do make a difference in the world, and I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.